The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Pastor Mike, good afternoon. This is Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Your chance to have your say by calling 66 13 68. You can text on 166 177, WhatsApp on the same number, or email studio@manxradio.com. We're open line today, so whatever's on your mind, your chance to tell the nation all about it. Have you heard about the birth rate, by the way? You heard the story in the news. The Isle of Man recorded its lowest number of births in over a century last year. 574 babies born in 2024. And I think it was something like 928, was it? 925 deaths were recorded, the highest in 25 years. And the widening gap between births and deaths highlights an ongoing period of natural population decline. What do we do? Text, email, call, WhatsApp, or anything else that's on your mind. David's with us first today. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. And I just want to give praise to Eric, because Eric Corkish from Ramsey, regarding 6 years, waiting 6 years to have a trial for 6 months so he can put a scooter on a bus. Where do we live in, Andy?
Well, he's, let's just say he's a very patient man, very patient and very persistent, Eric.
It is. And why are we going to have the test, if I'm led to believe what Manx Radio was saying there? It's going to be Williston and Douglas. But doesn't Eric live in Ramsey? So
yeah, he does.
I would have thought that he could write the 6 months test in about a week. All he got to do, he gets a free bus ride anyway, doesn't he? So he could do the calculations and give you his opinion. And there's nothing better than somebody that's involved in something, isn't it? Because he never got on the committee, did he? Remember that committee?
No, he didn't.
That this politician is running. It's an embarrassment to us that it's taken 6 years to get this, to talk about it and come to a conclusion and have a 6 months trial.
You would think, first of all, it's a fairly common sense thing, isn't it? Making sure that buses are available to everybody. Yeah. And secondly, it's not rocket science, is it? I mean, they're buses, really, aren't they?
Yeah, and the other thing too, I've seen the article there. We're spending another $1 million and something for more buses.
I think so. Yes, we're getting the new stuff now, aren't we?
Yeah. I don't know where all the money's coming from, but we certainly know where it's going to. And just a little sideline, my little pet hate is going to be happening. People have asked me about the salt. You know, salt bins around the island. They're nearly always at a bus stop and whatever.
Yeah.
Have you seen the colour of them?
Well, they're
supposed to be yellow.
Yeah, they're faded, aren't they?
Well, not faded. Some of them are covered in muck and slime and thing. Why don't we get... I mean, I'm always whinging about bus shelters. By the way, the one at Port Jack's not done yet. Still got the poster there. I don't know who invented that poster, but you get top marks for that. It's coming, and I'm still waiting now. I left a message with them. What was it now? Now it must be 4 or 5 weeks ago now. Still haven't got the answer when it's going to happen. And that's what people know on the island, don't they? We want to know when it's going to happen. It's no good telling us, like, we've got a 6 months trial coming. Who's doing it?
I wonder whose responsibility it is to clean those salt bins. I mean, along with the road signs as well, because there's some road signs that are obscured and some are covered in moss as well and muck. So you would think all you need is somebody with a power washer to go around and just spray the darn things.
Yeah, well, every sweeper, I'm led to believe, even the smaller ones, have what we call an attachment at the back, which has got a jet wash on it. All they got to do. And some years ago I did say what we need to encourage is maybe people working different hours. We don't need to do it when there's peak traffic on, do we, to get the signs done and whatever. Why don't they do some weekend work or out of hours work and get the signs done when it's quieter on the roads. And Andy, the other thing too, I followed the other day, the jet patch is back, and it's got Manx plates on it. So now we should be able to get all those potholes filled in a matter of months.
Wow. And what's the latest on the Cushug?
The one I'm keeping an eye on is about a foot tall. But it's in a hidden location. But I haven't seen any others. But I can tell you for a fact, Blackberry Lane is like a bowling green, only that it's on a bit of a slant. I may need some money in the future to flatten it so I can play football properly. Okay. Or get Everton over. I'd love to get Everton over. I'm an Everton fan.
Okay.
Right.
Good to hear from you. Thanks for that.
See you, lad.
All right. It's 12 minutes past 12. Have you spotted any big Cushugs, by the way, around the... we're trying to find the biggest one. Robert's on now. Hi, Robert.
How you doing? Just on this promenade, taking in the sun.
Lovely.
Yeah, I was just wondering about posting a profit. It usually comes out in October, doesn't it, for Manx Radio or something like that? I believe they're not making much of a profit at the moment.
Oh, good Lord, don't ask me.
All right. Well, I was talking with the radio guy, and I was thinking maybe they could have an equidistant shareholder within the Steam packet as well for public ownership. They did come up on Facebook recently.
My word. You need to pass these ideas on to people who know how to do them.
Right, and the other one is, can you get an aniseed sweet in Tesco?
An aniseed sweet? I would imagine you can. In the aniseed,
Are you sure? I haven't seen them. I think you're lying.
We need to find out then. Where can you get aniseed balls from? Are these balls or bars?
I'll probably say a succulent sweet, to be honest with you. Maybe a lucrative one.
Right, okay. Well, we'll see. Anyone know where you can get succulent aniseed from? All right, Robert, thanks for that.
All right, then.
Enjoy the sunshine, 13 minutes past 12. Yes, did you hear the story in the news about Mannin launching a 6-month awareness initiative aimed at improving access for mobility scooter users? And they're calling on Class 2 scooter users to apply to be part of this awareness initiative. The trial is going to assess the experience of passengers with mobility challenges, including how easily they can board and exit buses along Route 21. They'd love to hear from you. So let's just go back to the story about the births. In over a century, this is the lowest number of births. 574 babies born in 2024. That's what? A little over 10 a week were born. And Paul Crane, the researcher, says the Isle of Man is experiencing a period of natural population decline. And he reckons the shrinking number of young people could affect schools, the workforce, and, more importantly, tax and NI contributions. But despite this, Mr. Crane explains the recent data shows the Isle of Man's total population has reached a record high due to inward migration. So, fewer babies born, 574 babies born, 900 plus people passed away, but yet the population has gone up.
The births now are 43.9% lower than they were in 2010, and that's an extraordinary drop in births. So we've dropped from over 1,000 births to under 600 births in those 14 years. And it's part of a bigger picture. The Isle of Man's population is ageing in part because of people getting older, but ageing too because of the reduced number of younger people coming in.
And alongside that, we've seen the highest number of deaths in 25 years. What does that growing gap mean for the island's population trends?
So the gap last year, there were over 350 more deaths than births. In terms of going forward, if that level is maintained, it means we would need, for the population not to decline, we would need at least 350 people more moving into the Isle of Man than there are moving out of the Isle of Man. So it would require considerable movement in to make up for that deficiency of births against deaths.
Can immigration alone compensate for the island's natural decline, or are there actually limits to relying on that?
Theoretically, in numbers, it could do. We have had periods in the past. In the 1970s, for example, we had periods where I think there were 10,500 new residents arrived in the Isle of Man in a 5-year period between 1971 and 1976. So those sort of numbers, could make a difference, but they'll never fill the gaps that you've created. In other words, at the moment, for migration to make up what we're losing, we'd need under 15-year-olds to be coming in, and that's not what you'd be getting.
Paul Crane. Well, your thoughts on this? Remember, the government's stated aim is to get more people in the Isle of Man to bolster the economy. But that's the state we're at. Have you got any thoughts? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. Thank you to 169 who tells me Grapetree have got aniseed balls. Well, that's good, isn't it? We're being told all the youth are leaving to live elsewhere. So the answer is to import people from all over the planet to increase the birth rate of children who by the narrative will finish school and leave the Isle of Man. It seems now we've swallowed the never-ending immigration pill that European countries see as the panacea to all problems. So can somebody tell me where the demographic change and multiculturalism works? Says 960. Well, we're talking about the Isle of Man. So we've had immigration for years and years and years. As Paul Crane said, in the 1970s, 10,000 people came to live here. So is this something we're just going to have to accept, the fact that people do, and you're quite right, young people often do leave the Isle of Man. Some come back later on in life, but some never ever come back. That's as it always was. And it used to be worse when the Isle of Man relied on a 13-week tourist season. The winter work schemes will be remembered by many people. People used to leave the Isle of Man to pick sugar beets sometimes, to drive buses and do manual work purely to get some money. That's where the winter work schemes were instigated in the Isle of Man. Quite what we do is, if you have an idea, then by all means, and remember, let's consider the backdrop that the government's plan is to increase the population. Dee dropped me a note. I couldn't get to this one yesterday. Dee, it came in late to the show. It was regarding the hospital. We were talking about Manx Care. The hospital before Manx Care ran off 4 directors and a hospital manager. Now, says Dee, there are 20 directors and non-executive directors. Every one of them has a department with a senior business manager, an assistant business manager and a whole support team. And people wonder how, even accounting for inflation and salaries, Manx Care is spending £100 million more up on directors and their teams that never existed before, says Dee. Well, I'm sure that the matrix is somewhere, but it's never really apparent as to how many more bureaucrats and administrators there are. Remember that comment by Ollie a couple of days ago, who emailed in to say that before we used to have hospitals, Ramsey Cottage and Nobles, and adult care, primary care, and all those were supported by a bureaucracy. The appearance nowadays, said Ollie, is that we have a bureaucracy and we have hospitals and adult care and primary care and social care just tagging behind the bureaucracy. It's as though Ollie said that the bureaucracy is the be-all and end-all, and really it should be, the focus should be what they're doing. Liam said, what happened to that plan for the energy park at Andros Airfield? Didn't that have battery storage planned? Well, actually, they were interviewed last Sunday on Perspective. If you go to the Max Radio website, maxradio.com, hit listen again, Phil Gorn talked to Brian Brumby and Robert Murray about the plan for the energy park at Andros Airfield. It's a very impressive plan, and it involves farmers. I'm reading more and more about stories about dogs fouling in school premises, says Sarah. What's going on? Irresponsible owners, I think. Why would anybody think it's acceptable to exercise your dog on a school field? This boggles my mind. Whereabouts is that, Sarah? If you can tell me, I'd appreciate it. I've not heard much about that. but please pass the story on. The reason we're paying so much for electricity because of the massive loan that was taken out for the new power station. Is that what we're really paying for? That's 508. And we talked about, somebody called in yesterday and talked about hydroelectricity on the Isle of Man, the possibility of it. Loch Orr was built in Scotland, their hydro plant in the early 1960s, says Liz D. The falling birth rate is down to women, says Dewan. Not strictly true, Dewan. I don't quite know what point you're trying to get there. Procreation, I think, requires two people. And the story, I think it's certainly true for populations above 1 million. I don't quite know how that extrapolates to the Isle of Man. But in large populations, every couple has to have 2.3 children for the population to replenish. And it's a problem they have all over Europe. Spain's got a bad problem. Italy, their birth rate is through the floor. And that's part of the issue. And possibly that's probably why they see that immigration is an answer to that, purely because work has to be done. And if you don't have the indigenous population, what do? I live in Ramsey. Lived in Ramsey all my life, and I've never seen so many dogs, which is great, but on the downside, there's fouling everywhere due to irresponsible owners. And to make matters worse, Ramsey Town Commissioners don't seem interested. I phoned the commissioners only to be told, phone the warden. Lack of interest in the appearance of the town, and this is visible from the general state. Who's the warden in Ramsey, Big John? And what did the warden say? They should incentivise Manx students more, but would that be too difficult, says Oliver. We pay for the young ones to leave, so what do the people expect? I'm presuming you're referring to the university support that people get, and our students don't come out of university with, as in the UK, a debt of about £35,000, £40,000. Of course, by the same token, our students have to pay for their accommodation and travel as well. A notice, 715. Hey, June, if you want to call rather than just sending cryptic messages, then by all means do. Yeah, thanks for that, June. Thanks also to 384. Can anybody tell me where the X-ray department goes for lunch between 12 and 1? I've been trying to contact the X-ray department at Nobles Hospital for the last 39 minutes. They just don't seem to be there. Nick's Sweet Shop in Castletown. Oh, dear me, we've started something with aniseed balls, haven't we? I believe that part of our population, this is Ian now on 817, nothing to do with linseed, aniseed stuff. Part of our population problem is down to Tony Blair's government. Blimey, that was ages ago. They effectively commercialised education, and it became a rite of passage for children to go to university. More Isle of Man children left the Isle of Man for university and still do, and a greater number haven't returned, says Ian. That was Mr. Blair's mantra, wasn't it? Education, education, education. Everybody has to go to university. And they didn't have enough universities, so they made all the polytechnics into universities.
Where has a 5-star selection of hand-picked quality cars?
Manx Car Store.
Where are you guaranteed a 5-star friendly professional service?
Manx Car Store.
And where has 5-star prices on cars covering all budgets? That's right, Manx Car Store on Kirby Farm Industrial Estate, open 7 days a week. To see their range of quality cars and over 250 5-star reviews, just visit manxcarstore.com or find them on Facebook. Manx Car Store, a place you can really trust.
Oh, I don't believe it.
Don't believe what?
A small stone just flew off and shattered the conservatory window.
Oh, no problem. I'll call out Manx Glass and Glazing.
Can they fix it?
Yeah, Mum's glass shattered and they soon replaced it.
Manx Glass and Glazing don't just do the big jobs. Visit Snugborough Trading Estate for all your glazing supplies and repairs, including broken or failed double glazed units, along with good old-fashioned customer service and product knowledge.
Manx Glass and Glazing. You're smashing.
There's monkeys and meerkats, penguins galore. You can meet with a panda, owls, lemurs and more.
The Curragh Wildlife Park is open 7 days a week, so book your tickets and experiences online now at curraghswildlifepark.im.
Spring, a time for new beginnings and nature. This season, why not have a fresh start by switching your savings to Guernsey's Bank Skipton International and watch them grow? Skipton International offers a range of savings accounts, from fixed term to notice and easy access, enabling your savings to bloom for longer. So make this spring one to remember by switching to Skipton International today.
For details of all Skipton International savings products, call 01481 730 730 or visit skiptoninternational.com. Skipton International is licensed to take deposits by the GFSC and is a participant in the Guernsey Banking Deposit Compensation Scheme. See dcs.gg.
With just 2 games to go this season, can FC Isle of Man finally find a way out from their recent poor run of form? In their penultimate game of the campaign, the Ravens host Liverpool and Remaker this weekend, off of the back of 2 heavy home defeats. Join me, Rob Pritchard and Tony Mepham for FC Isle of Man versus Liverpool and Remaker, kicking off at 6 p.m. on Saturday. Manx Radio will be bringing you full live match commentary on our DAB and AM 1368 channels. Live coverage of FC Isle of Man on Manx Radio is supported by Selton, investing in our community.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Stephen joins us. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Andy, and good afternoon, listeners. If I could just talk about, again, the Civil Liberties meeting that the Positive Action Group held on the 31st of March.
Yep.
And there is now a podcast available to see the salient points that were made at that meeting about civil liberties, and in particular the safe access zones. And I would urge all our legislators to have a look at the podcast, because Peter Murcott does illustrate all the points that were made by him at the meeting, and he talks about the technical detail of the punishments and the crimes that could be committed by this act. If it was enacted, it would be more draconian than anywhere else in the UK and possibly Europe. The punishments are more. And we did, at that meeting, we did talk about civil liberties and prison. And it's interesting that it's come out due to a freedom of information exercise that our prison population has risen dramatically. So it was raised at that meeting, although it's not majored on in the podcast, that are we using prison too much? Is our default position to jail people? And going back even a couple of months where the Howard League for Penal Reform gave a presentation, they did say at that meeting we were the highest in Europe for our prison population, and yet we also say that we're one of the safest places to live. So I think there's question marks to be asked. Are we using prison too much? Is our default position to be more draconian in our legislation that we introduce? Recently there was a meeting by the various health body and home affairs to discuss you coming up with different punishments and not using prison as the first option available for those involved with low-level drug use. And yet, since that meeting was held and the recommendations were made, we do still see low-level drug use and possession being put through the courts and prison being given. So that also leads on to questions about the prison itself and probation. Are we, now it's overcrowded, are we ignoring the benefits of rehabilitation in the prison and exercise and all the other facilities that it provides? So this use of prison does lead on to all these types of questions. How much reoffending is being done and carried out without, and if it's overcrowded, do we have enough places in the prison to give people a chance to rehabilitate? Is there an availability, or is there any, if you remember, David Ashford on this programme spoke about providing places for accommodation when people leave prison. And if we've got more people in prison, do they lose their homes whilst they're in there? Consequently, they come out with all the problems that entails. Giving people a prison sentence, does it impact on their future life chances?
Yeah. I mean, two things, Stephen. Obviously, if somebody is a Manx resident, then surely, I mean, it's incumbent on the system, as you say, to stop recidivisms, to stop future reoffending. They have to be rehabilitated, be brought back into society. Otherwise, it doesn't do us any good either, because society needs people who contribute to society. The other thing is there are people in the prison who are not residents of the Isle of Man. There have been drug carriers from Liverpool and from the northwest who have been incarcerated there. So there is quite a number of people who are non-Manx residents who are in the jail. So I think that may contribute to the level of occupation there.
Well, it certainly does, and I think we would probably have to go back before this latest initiative by the constabulary to tackle the issue of drug use. But until I suppose we accept that some people don't go and have a glass of wine, they have some form of drug use. Yeah. So I do think there's a bigger question mark about this, but certainly for lower level drug use and possession, possibly we should start revisiting what we do, because there's even talk of building a new prison wing with all the millions of pounds that would entail. Is that going to be the best use of our money and the best use of trying to stop the revolving door of prison as a punishment? It's not an easy thing, and people like normally to hear about, yes, we're jailing them and being very hard on people, but it doesn't solve the bigger issues.
Anyway, just tell me a little more about that podcast. Where is it available?
So people can find it's done by Jed Power, and all great thanks to him. He discusses some of the issues he spoke about on the evening. Peter Murcott talks about the problems of the bill, and Tony Brown talks about the way to resolve it, and it can be found on YouTube. Just put in Jed Power, or on Facebook on the Positive Action Group page, and they'll find the podcast there.
Okay, all right, appreciate it. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
All right, 26 minutes before 1, and Bonzo is with us, I think, in just a few moments' time. We'll get to Bonzo. Families having babies are far better supported across in terms of child benefit and childcare benefits. An experiment in Sweden saw the birth rate go up when families receive better support in terms of leave and benefits. So are you suggesting better paternity or maternity? What do you think should happen? Is it better bluntly, that we grow our own population, as in people on the Isle of Man have children and raise them here, or that people come in? Anyway, Bonzo's on now. Hi, Bonzo.
Hello. Yes, just coming back on that particular point that you just mentioned, I believe that there have been some substantial rises in both child benefit and the availability of child benefit on the island that have just come into force.
Yeah, that's right. They went up a few days ago.
They were from the budget. Although, of course, early years and stuff, I think, is still a problem. That is a hangover from the Beltier regime, when Peter Caron essentially had to scrap free early years, subsidised early years education, to save more money for people to have nice low taxes if they are quite wealthy.
Yeah.
And then we come to the crux of the problem about population. Firstly, we have to allow people to essentially afford to be able to have children. Firstly, by improving those low to medium level incomes, and also making housing available, which gives them the capacity to have children. There's also the issue nowadays of if you're obviously purchasing a house and such, you're going to need both the couple's income. And for a woman, childbirth has a very large, still, sadly, career penalty, the pregnancy penalty, which means you miss out on not only the salary that you would have earned in those few years before your child goes off to school, when you're there as the main caregiver to your child, and then after, because you're sort of starting 5 years back in your career, you won't have had those promotion opportunities and stuff, and so having a child has a real career penalty for women. So we need to structure things in order to be able to incentivize that. Now, or should I say, remove some of the economic and career and social penalties from that. I mean, it is great that obviously women now have far more control over their own fate via developments in family planning. They have control over their own fertility, and so they can plan careers, which also, of course, contribute to the economy. But that also, and this is where I think Joan and his sort of Trumpist lot are coming from, in that this stops women being homemakers and proper wives and all this kind of misogynistic and sexist rubbish. I think one has to accept the situation and accept the fact that the change in things is actually a damn good thing. And I'm old enough to remember when women who got married were supposed to leave their jobs and go and look after the household and for their husband and do their duty and have children. It was just ludicrous.
Just going back to the point about Peter Carroll, and you say the disappearance of early years care or vouchers and support towards early years care. That's for many people that bedevils their life, because obviously when a woman has a child and the child gets to an age where it's suitable to go into care, the woman simply can't afford to go to work unless it's a high-paid job, because the cost of childcare cancels out any money that she'd earn.
Well, yeah, and even if you are in a high-paid job, you're virtually still paying to go to work. It's mad.
So surely that's counterproductive.
Yes, it's counterproductive for the individual woman, certainly, and also counterproductive to society. Because that woman can no longer rejoin the workforce and contribute because of the fact that there is this huge economic penalty. So we get to the point about public finances. So, in order to structure things so that lower middle-income families or middle-income couples can afford to have families, because I remember the figure, I think it was a few years ago now, so it's probably rather larger, put 25% on it or so. A few years ago that they said the cost of having a child, from birth to 18 was something like 100,000 over that 18 years. It's probably something like 125, 130, I should think now, and that doesn't think about any contributions to university or anything like that. So, a child is a considerable investment, if you like, and that is why people are having fewer children. But also, of course, the thing about the dynamics of women in the workplace and such. So we have to allow people to earn that retain from their earnings, or indeed earn that kind of money in order to be able to do that. And that means, strangely enough, taxing the ones with the broadest shoulders a little more. We don't have to go around squeezing them until the pips squeak. But there has to be an absolute recognition that the only way to maintain the population, let's get rid of ideas of growing the population, that's just stuff and nonsense. we should be thinking about maintaining the population before we become, in 20 years like St Kilda, except a bigger version, with no people or, 5 people and a cross on it. We have to reorientate the way we think about things. And the current model that we're going, though it's being recognised, and yes, a bit of work on child benefit and such like that, but there needs to be a far more fundamental change to the way that we organise the economy and in some ways organise society in order to be able to allow people to have families.
Okay, all right, appreciate it. Thanks, Bonzo.
Okay, cheers, bye.
18 minutes before 1, and let's get to, I think Nick is going to be with us in a few moments' time. We'll find Nick on Mannin Line.
Hi Liz, I see you've had your garage converted. We're desperate for more room.
Yes, come through and have a look. John called Manx Property Conversions. We now have an extra bedroom, but it could be another reception room, kids' playroom or office. They also did our conservatory roof last year. We were so impressed, we got them back to convert the garage.
Wow, I need that. What's their number again?
Call MPC on 450 500. That's 450 500. Or find them on Facebook at Manx Property Conversions.
I am one car centre, the place to go. Great choice and prices so low. I am one car centre on Domain Road. Cars of every kind at prices that are hard to find. Visit on Facebook to see the range or call 611 040. Great service, choice and prices low. I am one car centre, the place to go.
Chain, there's no chain. The chain's jumped off the sprocket.
Motorcycle racing is back this Sunday on the Derby Airfield for the Andreas Racing Association's meeting. Under 16s get in free, adults are £6. There's full facilities. Come and see us trackside.
Douglas City Council are pleased to announce that their annual free family Easter fun event is being held on Tuesday the 15th of April from 12:30 to 3:30 at Belafton Park. With fun for the whole family, it promises to be an exciting event with a children's Easter egg hunt, a visit from the Easter Bunny, prizes to be won in the running and novelty races, and the Best Bunny colouring competition. Come and search for the golden tickets at this free family Easter fun event on Tuesday the 15th of April from 12:30 to 3:30 at Belafton Park with Douglas City Council.
Belfast is buzzing, and the Isle of Man Steam Packet's Belfast routes are back so you can see for yourself. But how about we make your Irish adventure even more fun by giving you £1,000 to spend on a Belfast experience? We've teamed up with the Steam Packet to bring you this incredible prize. Check out the videos we took on our social pages for a bit of Irish inspiration and for your chance to win. And listen to Manx Radio all this week to get in the draw. The Belfast is Buzzing £1,000 prize with the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company and your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Nick's with us. Hi, Nick.
Oh, good afternoon. I had a thought about the reduction of childbirths, and I've after listening to Bonzo, I have to agree with him in some ways that it's just too expensive to have children, and it's too expensive to house them. I know of some people personally who are my partner's daughter's just turned 29, I think, and she and her partner have a house, but they've got great careers, yet there's no way they're ready for children. And I had another thought on that. What if it's the case that it's so expensive to have children and house them and feed them and whatnot, that people will wait until they're above their childbearing age, and then it'll be too late? What if it comes to that? My other theory was actually about my own children. My daughter's 18, and she doesn't date boys or girls. She has a group of friends which she is devoted to, and they have fun and they go out and they do stuff. But she's just not interested in dating any gender. I'm just being very open-minded here, but any gender whatsoever. My son is 19. He doesn't date. He just games all evening and works. So he's too preoccupied with his online gaming. I think he would like to have a relationship, but he just doesn't feel like it's available. There's nothing available. And then I just was thinking that children of that age I think they lack the emotional capacity to have relationships, meaningful relationships of the opposite sex.
On account of what, Nick?
I think that they've been dumbed down by social media and competitiveness on social media. I don't think they're evolving emotionally enough. Actually, I really seriously believe that. I think they'd rather have the straightforward friends that they have than the complex relationships of being with somebody in a physical relationship. So I think it's just far more emotionally easy to have friends that you're not going to, procreate with than it is otherwise. I think there's a serious downward turn in dating for the sake of the carnal side of it.
Yeah.
If I may.
When I was a child, it would be a sad thing, wouldn't it, Nick? It would be a sad thing if only rich people could afford to have children.
Well, it would be, and it is, unless, of course, you're really careless about it, and you're very young, and then you have a child, and then you're a burden on on society. No, I don't mean society. I mean the government. I mean for welfare, because you can't possibly. It's almost a catch-22. You can't if a woman has a child, that she cannot work for at least 3 years of that time, because there's no way that you can afford childcare, unless, of course, you've got assistance. And speaking from a parental perspective, when my children were born in 2005 and 2007, my ex-wife now, but my wife at the time, I worked in an office, she worked in an office, we both worked our butts off. We couldn't afford childcare. If we didn't have the assistance from her great-grandparents, I mean, talking people in their 70s, helping to look after our child, I don't know what we would have done. We waited. We couldn't wait till our first child was able to go to reception, just so he could have somewhere to go for that 4 hours a day. And we did pay for childcare for like the 4 hours in the afternoon sometimes, but that was so expensive. Sometimes we couldn't afford it. It was ridiculous. And that and nappies, it was really, really, really tough. So my wife ended up stopping working so that she could look after the kids and getting a pittance on final benefits, because she was not able to. We were under the threshold.
Yeah.
So I worked full time. She didn't, and that was the way to go. So then again, we were a burden on the government. And it was. I don't think it was through any fault of our own, except for the fact that we had children.
So I mean,
I don't think, in a nutshell, I don't think we're having children if they can afford it, like Ron just said.
As you say, but that is a fairly pessimistic outlook, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. And, I mean, unless you're this is going to sound terribly stereotypical and narrow-minded, but unless you're 16 or around that age and you get pregnant, you're not going to get a house with assistance. There's no way.
Okay.
And that's what happens. Some people will get pregnant at a very young age, get a house straight away, and live their life like that. I know people like that. I've known people like that. When I live down south, it's common. It's not uncommon, unfortunately.
Okay. All right.
So if you do the right thing, work hard, you can't afford to have children.
We appreciate it.
Simple as that.
Thanks for calling today, Nick.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Enjoy your insight. It's 10 to 1 on Manx Radio with Mannin Line. Julian's here now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. I watched the podcast at Jed Power's YouTube channel, just in case it's GEDPOWER is the name of the channel. An excellent 40 minutes, worth anybody's time. Very interesting.
Okay. What's the upshot of it? What was the conclusion to it, or is it just information?
The access zone bill is a very dangerous piece of legislation, according to our ex-chief minister, Tony Brown, and I completely agree with him. And I think it needs a select committee to actually go over this, because, as he said, you can't give proper scrutiny on the floor of the House. You're going to have to look at this, because it's extremely serious for every single person on this island for their freedoms. I mean, it really is a draconian piece of legislation. You mentioned Paul Crane earlier.
Yeah.
One of the things that he neglected to say when he said people came over here, guess who else came over here in the 70s?
Who came over?
Merchant and commercial banks. Guess why?
Go on.
Became a low taxation jurisdiction.
Right.
So, if you look now, what's the direction of taxation going now?
Up.
Yeah, and we have people calling in saying that we should readjust society to pay more. How about cutting all the fat off and cutting all the expenses off? Lowering taxation, lowering regulation to allow businesses to thrive. I think that might have a much bigger shot in the arm, if you excuse my expression, for the Isle of Man. If it's worked before, it'll work now. But I mean, ever-increasing taxation on people has never yielded a wealthy nation in the history. So we're going to have to come up with something else, because the direction it's going, and things like aligning ourselves with these financial institutions in the United Nations with sustainability, and also from yesterday's conversation, is the state pension linked to renewable share prices, because if the two biggest players in the world have dropped by 81 and 71% in the last 5 years, the majority of the loss during the Biden administration, who was pro-wind, you've got to wonder, what is the financial situation going to be here? Is everyone going to lose their shirts on the state pension at some point in the not too distant future? Business is hard enough as it is. What was it? 95% dependent on food. Being brought to the island now.
But
that's a big difference.
Going back to industry on the Isle of Man, you mentioned the commercial banks and the merchant banks coming over here. We've reinvented ourselves several times. I mean, the days of mass tourism are long gone, never to be revisited. We're a niche tourism market now, but as you say, the captive insurance market was a very healthy earner for us, and now obviously e-gaming. That was under Alan Bell. Mr. Bell ushered that era in, and that does very well for us now. So what we're talking about is being nimble on our feet and finding something else to make a living out of. If we're going to earn, as you say, if the answer, as far as you're concerned, isn't increased taxation, it's basically broadening the economy, broadening the businesses that are here. Somebody somewhere, some clever so-and-so, has got to come up with an idea.
Yeah, you've got Manx Care spending out of control. It seems DOI is now going out of control. That's our money. And, it's not just about, I don't think it's about paying people more. It's about cutting expenditure and making providing an environment where businesses can thrive. I mean, it's not for nothing that Isle of Man creameries are saying that they're happy with the tariffs in America, because it's giving them an advantage over Southern Ireland with their cheeses.
Okay.
So, there's an element of truth in that, isn't there?
All right, we appreciate it. Thanks for calling today. Good to hear from you, Julian.
Thanks, Andy.
5-1, by the way. A couple of people have mentioned Tony Brown, who was on that podcast. Mr. Brown is a candidate for election at the Castletown Commissioners. He is standing alongside, he'll be contesting it with Beth Cannon, John Kringle, William Galley, Alan Leonard, Mahendra Kumar Patel, Carol Quine, Lawrence Watterson and Colin Leather on the 24th of April. And many messages in concerning this. The birth rate on the Isle of Man is not likely to rise much more, as women have control over birth control. And with the economy as it is, says Kay, you can't afford to have children. That's a very pessimistic outlook, isn't it? I mean, children are the joy of the world, really. I mean, they're the future. They're going to pay all the taxes in the future. A note in that says regarding civil liberties and the MyCard termination, CC, bank closures and a co-carer. Sat with my best friend who's very unwell, rarely leaves home. I do the shopping, pay the bills. Today a letter arrived dated the 21st of March. The 21st of March, postmark 9th of April. The threat of a bank account closure if by the 5th of April certain information wasn't provided. My friend's just had a bad turn due to this, and it just isn't fair. Oh yes, also a very important pointer to their plans and our futures in the myriad of questions that they pose.
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
Like council rate payments, other ridiculous, invasive and personal private information on the letter. They even asking why payments are made to me. Firstly, how on earth can this intrusion be legal? And secondly, how does the government expect people to cope with no banks and very soon no MyCard? What will people do? 1984 is here, says CC. Well, if you have any thoughts on anything you've heard, you just heard, the answer phone is 682 631. Leave your message. It will be broadcast if you want to leave it, so get your thoughts together. 682 631. Or you can email manninline@manxradio.com out of hours. The population seems to be going down naturally, but is rising because of immigration. Any thoughts on this and anything else? Back with another open line, Mannin Line, tomorrow at high noon, and thanks to Chris on the phones today.
WINT